Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. We're thrilled to have each and every one of you here with us today for our Fiveable SAT reading cram. It's a delight to see all your faces virtually. And whether you're tuning in from any time, any place, we hope you're feeling just as excited as we are because we have an amazing session lined up for you. I am Delilah, and we have our other host, Rashi. Uh, we can dive in and let's make the most of our time together. Also, do not forget to follow at Think Fiveable on all social media platforms. Stay updated, engaged, and be a part of our community. And we can't wait to connect with you there. Also, just a reminder, make sure you activate Cram mode. You get unlimited access to practice questions with different levels of difficulty and topics, so you're ready for any curveball on exam day. You also get unlimited access to study guides, which are very organized and ensure topics are covered in a logical and coherent manner. And it also really helps with simplifying complex topics. You also get access to all live Cram events with this interactive Q&A so you can engage in real time. We also record every session, so in case you miss a live event, you'll have access to all the recorded versions. And Cram members are the first to get access to new products and features, and there are no recurring subscriptions, so you don't get charged periodically and you avoid unexpected charges on your accounts. Our community agreements, I just want to say that we want to thank you again for being here today and that your enthusiasm and your presence are what makes these events special. Now, just as a gentle reminder, please make sure our chats and our interactions are positive and supportive. Remember to be kind and understanding and patient with one another. We don't tolerate hate, bullying, or any form of disrespect. So let's just make sure our comments are constructive face to face. It's best not to say it here. And this is another call to action. Please don't forget to interact with us in the chat to share all your thoughts and questions and reactions. We're here to help you, so please don't be shy. And now I believe we could dive into our agenda today, where I could go over SAT reading basics, and I'll be going over the passage overviews for the literary and historical. And we have Rashi here, which I believe will be going over social sciences and scientific concepts along with our practice questions. And then we have a Q&A at the end for any lingering questions. So we can get started with the basics. So the SAT English. Okay, let me catch my breath here. Okay, within the SAT's reading section, you'll encounter, within the English section, it's 800 points out of 1800. In the SAT reading section, you'll have 52 questions to tackle, all within the time frame of 65 minutes. So that breaks down to approximately a minute, 1.25 seconds per question, which is not adjusted for reading. And in this section, you'll have to navigate through 4 independent passages and a set of paired passages. In the SAT reading section, you'll encounter 4 different passages: literature, historical, social sciences, and scientific concepts kind of squished in together here. For the first is literature. You can these passages are usually excerpts from classic or contemporary literary works. So you'll see novels, short stories, maybe poetry, and questions related to the literature passages often focus on themes, characterization, plot development, literary devices. Within the synthesis and the SAT reading, you'll encounter paired passages, which are two related texts that present a common theme, topic, or issue from different perspectives, and you have to synthesize or bring together information from both passages to answer questions effectively. You have to identify perspectives, so one passage may support a certain idea or argument while the other may oppose it to provide a counterpoint. And you also, a tip I have is to look for common themes or ideas that both passages touch upon. So these shared elements will form the basis for synthesis questions. Sometimes themes are not explicitly stated, but can be inferred from the text. So make sure you think about what the author might be implying or suggesting beneath the surface. And some of these questions might ask you to compare and contrast information presented in passages. So also, I would suggest to pay attention to similarities and differences in their arguments, evidence, or perspectives. And also, I would suggest don't avoid assuming. So don't guess or assume things about the author's beliefs or how the passages relate unless you have clear evidence in the text. One tip I always go for is if it's not stated in the text, it doesn't exist. Um, and make sure you could see the big picture by understanding how both passages will contribute to an overall understanding of like a broader concept or theme. We also have the concept of command of evidence, which is your ability to identify and select specific textual evidence from a passage to support your answers to questions. So you'll be demonstrating how well you can understand the text and your capability to justify your choices with concrete evidence from the provided passage. So it would really assess your ability to engage with the passage directly and avoid making assumptions or relying on prior knowledge. Uh, you have to be precise in your responses, and your answers should be well supported by the text. Okay, so now we can go on to the historical section. First off, we have textual evidence and making connections. So that means using evidence from the text to tie ideas or concepts together. So you got to be like a detective, searching for like specific details in the passage that back up the connections that you're making. And in historical passages, they'll have like usually have a chronological connection, meaning that events and ideas often happen in order. So you might need to figure out how one event led to another or how different parts of history connect over time. And you also need to look for cause and effect relationships within the passage. So you'll need to figure out how one thing led to specific outcomes or consequences, which is a simplified way of looking at a passage. And again, you might also be asked to compare and contrast different people, groups, and events mentioned in the passage and spot similarities and differences to make those connections. And you also might need to do inferential connections. So your inferences involve drawing conclusions based on what's in the text, and you might need to infer connections between events, ideas, or people that aren't outright spelled there in the passage. The way that it helps me mostly is trying to find the main idea and supporting details, because making connections could also be figuring out the main point of the passage and understanding how all those little details and examples support the main point. When I go through reading these passages, I always try to look for the main idea and its supporting details so that it makes it easier not only to make inferential connections, but also identify cause and effect relationships, and it's easier to make connections that way. Ooh, and if you're dealing with paired passages, again, you might have to link ideas or themes. So comparing and contrasting how authors see things, etc., etc., etc. What all of this does is making you think critically. Making connections is all about thinking critically. You're analyzing the information in the passage, drawing logical conclusions, and weighing the importance of the connections that you find. In some writing passages, you might encounter a crossover between social science topics and scientific concepts. And these both are designed to test your ability to integrate information from both fields and demonstrate your understanding of how these disciplines interact with each other. So here's what to keep in mind when you tackle the SAT social scientists and social sciences and scientific concepts. First off, be prepared to encounter scientific terminology and concepts within a social science context. So, basic familiarity with scientific principles like basic biology, chemistry, and physics, or environmental sciences can be helpful. Um, and you also would need to do data interpretation. So, like in pure science passages, you might encounter data in the form of charts or graphs or tables, scientific findings, and your ability to interpret and analyze this data is crucial. Um, all of these passages incorporate a synthesis, so you have to combine information from a paired set of passages, which I explained in the literature and historical section. There's not much differs from it. You might have to find the main idea, compare and contrast ideas, uh, all of that jazz. And some infographics, you have to analyze the features of and the results displayed in a graph or image. Uh, some of these questions may include like whether or not no, that's writing and language. Some of them would include probably whether or not a passage fits or exactly what the graph means within the context and why it's important, if that makes sense. Now we can move on to time management. First tip, please bring a silent, non-smartwatch to monitor your time. I remember bringing like those little timers on my wrist. Not timers. I mean like a watch. Oh my god. To monitor your time. It's really helpful if you struggle with timing. And it also helps determining whether or not you're gonna skip something or if you gotta power through things. And also it helps with taking your time with passages. And also it helps to be familiar with the instructions ahead of time so you're not figuring everything out on test day. And don't equally divide your time between questions. Some questions might be shorter and easier and others might require more time. So when you section out your time, make sure you go for either the passages that are the easiest for you or first the passages that are hardest for you and allot your time wisely. And be willing to use all the time you're given. Like if you manage to finish early, I recommend going back and double checking, right? But don't double check too much, otherwise you might what's the word? Don't second guess yourself, but also make sure everything you do, you double check and make sure you have the reasoning to back it up. And consider your target score and please breathe. Um I think what makes a lot of students like not reach their target score or feel disappointed or stressed out is that you're stressing yourself out on test day, which I don't know, that all that adrenaline is not good for you. I recommend slowing down, take a breather, think about it and take your time and think it through and you'll never go wrong. So we could go into SAT passage reading overviews. First off, for the literature and historical. So within the literature passage of the SAT, you're facing passages that cover a wide range of writing styles and topics. You could do a novel or poetry. It could be anything from 21st century literature to 18th century literature. And so when you're covering all of these different ranges of styles and topics, you shouldn't focus on the literal meaning of the passage and rather focus on the themes and the main idea and the elements that allow it to make it a cohesive argument. So underlying themes, key arguments, literary devices. I recommend looking up literary devices if you don't know what that is, like imagery, literary devices like imagery, allegory, allusion, foreshadowing. But now we're getting AP with it. We're getting floppy with it. So, some past examples I recommend looking up. Ethan Flame, Edith Wharton, The Strangeness of Beauty. I think the first one is more like 18th, 19th century literature. The Strangeness of Beauty, I think, might be the same. Uh, I think they might all be past literature. I recommend if you if you ever have trouble reading 18th century literature, I always say, uh, go watch some movies about it, around it. Anna Karenina. What's that one movie? Any Keira Knightley movie, except Pirates of the Caribbean. Pride and Prejudice. That'll help you with these passages. Also, this I'm getting off topic here, but if you ever need a tip, read like National Geographics for sciences, maybe New York Times articles or any newspaper of your choice. I prefer the Washington Post. And so some strategies for the for literature. Understanding characterization is key, right? So how the character develops throughout um characterization, how the character develops throughout their point of view, what they're trying to say, maybe even what they represent, and understand. Also, it helps to understand the structure. So whether it's told chronologically or told through vignettes, or like it's not told chronologically, the things are jumbled. Understanding how the sentences are structured. All of this helps to understanding not only the tone of the passage, but it adds to the main idea. And answer questions strategically. Now that means many different things. One, it could mean that if you don't know a question, it's best to skip it and move on to a question you do know and then come back. Also, it helps when you're reading the questions um to cross out anything that is like an absolute negative. So don't choose answers that say like that always say like a never or a not or anything that is definitive, because those are often the answers that are wrong. And make sure you read the question carefully, because sometimes they'll throw curveballs at you, and make sure you read the answer choices carefully. And I encourage active reading for all those people who tend to fall asleep during reading passages. I encourage summarizing what you just read as you go through it, thinking about the main idea, what the author's purpose might have been. I recommend highlighting, doing whatever you wait, are highlighters? I'm not sure highlighters are allowed, but make it like underlining, circling, going through and trying to find main ideas, supporting evidence. That'll always help when you're trying to read actively. And obviously, practice, practice, practice. There's no better tip than allowing yourself to not only be familiar with the SAT, but also be familiar with the way they ask questions, familiar with the answer choices, and the content that you'll be given. Practice will always help you in the long run. So, I mean, you gotta recommend it. And some tips for the synthesis. First off, the synthesis, meaning you're comparing and contrasting given information within a passage. Uh, excuse me. Make sure you understand the central points that each passage is making. And if you aren't able to say it in your own words, then you might not have the depth of understanding to answer the question. This is why I always recommend summarizing as you read and paraphrasing, like seeing what you could say in your own words. And for a global perspective, identifying themes and connections to the culture surrounding a character. So avoid choosing answers that summarize secondary answers. Instead, I would recommend answers that summarize the central point. Things that don't beat around the bush, but like get right into the meat of it. And for command of evidence, you have to provide support for a previous answer given, which is sequential to the last question, meaning you'll be given one question and then you'll be asked to asked to be asked to choose an answer, asked to choose evidence that supports your main point. So always make sure your previous answer matches your evidence-based question and avoid answers that provide evidence for the wrong answer in the previous question. And now we can go on to historical passages. So we're looking at thoughts and arguments of the past. And so these will often have a clearly defined topic and a purpose, which I think makes finding the theme and primary arguments in the text easier. But sometimes these passages tend to use like an older, antiquated language. So you might have to read more deliberately than in the literature passage. So, for example, you could be given autobiographies like from Booker T. Excuse me. Oh my God. Bad day. You also might be giving speeches by politicians or like other influential figures. I think I remember getting like a speech by Ronald Reagan in one of my passages. So we go on. So for strategies, avoid rereading the passage and I would recommend using what you know. If you have no context for anything, right? Like let's say you're given context for Booker T. Washington. I think based on our curriculum, thank you, bless you. What was I saying? Like Booker T. Washington, like I think in the curriculum you would understand what he is about and what he did, so that can color your understanding of it. I recommend not going too far. Don't get too floppy with your explanations, but I think a little bit of background knowledge will always help. And look for the tone of the passage. Always your answer choices has to match the tone of the answers. So you wouldn't have like a serious straightforward text like you wouldn't have serious rhetoric and then have your answer choice be somewhat lighthearted in tone or missing the point of the tone entirely. I recommend reading the context blurb because always that goes in hand with using what you know, because that context blurb, I think a lot of people skip it, but reading it is really crucial not only to understanding what they're understanding what they're talking about, but also part of what their point of view is. And obviously, I recommend practice. So for when you find connections, you have to infer relationships between two events, characters, ideas. It's like synthesis, but within a passage rather than between two passages. So I tend to focus on specific keywords that indicate a focus on like a sequence, like a cause by, therefore, despite. All of these sequence words indicate that you can infer a relationship between two ideas. And then you also have to identify cause and effect relationships. So identifying an action or condition that resulted in an event, finding similarities and differences between two events or timelines, and using that information to answer the question. Again, I would try to find keywords keywords or topics expressed between the passages or within the passage. So if a topic is brought up and a change is highlighted, there's a good chance there is a cause and effect relationship. So now we can go into like the reading and literature practice. Can we put up the we have our reading period of 3 minutes. I'll set a timer, and if somebody could put up the passages we're reading, that'll be appreciated. Right. The first reading passage is down below in the green button, green, blue, whatever I think it's green, but it's down below in the green button. Let me know if you can, let anybody in the chat can sound off whether or not you could see it. That would be greatly appreciated. And we can start the timer for 3 minutes. Correct? 3 minutes? Okay. That's my timer. Time is up. So we can go on to our first question. Let me make the poll visible. So first, I'm gonna set a 40-second timer, and I'll read through the question as we go. Any answer choices? No, where's my timer? Okay. So first off, which choice best describes what happens in the passage? A. One character argues with another character who intrudes on her home. B. One character receives a surprising request from another character. C. One character reminisces about choices she has made over the years. Or D. One character criticizes another character for pursuing an unexpected course of action. Okay, my timer has gone off. 40 seconds is up. We can go on to, we have the poll visible, right? Again, I just want to make sure, you guys, that you, answer in the poll. It's in the tab on your right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It helps us understand whether or not you got the answers correct and what we might need to work on. We can go on now to the second question. I'm setting the timer now. Which reaction does Akira fear most from Chi? I'm gonna say that. A, she will consider his proposal inappropriate. B, she will mistake his earnestness for immaturity. C, she will consider his unscheduled visit an imposition. Or D, she will underestimate the sincerity of his emotions. Okay, in case anybody wanted to answer, the poll for question 2 is visible. I'm seeing a lot of C's. C's. We could go on to the next. Uh, 40 seconds is starting. Which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Which reaction does Akira fear most from Chi? The first piece of evidence is his voice was soft, refined. B, you know how children speak so earnestly, so hurriedly, so endearingly about things that have no importance in an adult's mind. C, please don't judge the candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. Or D, eager to make his point, he'd been looking her full in the face. All right, those 40 seconds are up. Again, the poll, I would recommend I'm seeing 10 people here, but only 3 votes. Why is that? 4? Yeah. Yeah, you better get in those polls. So the first okay, I'm not muted, thank God. So the first answer the first answer to the first question was B. I'm seeing it was split. Okay, so I'm going to go down the list. So for question 1, B is the best answer. Because in the passage, this Akira asks his mother Chi for permission to marry her daughter Naomi, and the request was surprising to the mother, which, as you see from line 47, which states that prior to the question, she had no idea the request was coming. Nobody chose A, so I don't have to. I'm just gonna explain why that's incorrect anyway. A is incorrect because the passage depicts 2 characters engaged. They're talking pretty civilly, and she is impressed with Akira's sincerity and finding herself starting to like him. C is incorrect because the passage is focused on the idea of Akira and Naomi's present lives and possible futures. And D is wrong because the interactions between Chi and Akira are polite. They aren't mean and they aren't critical. So Chi, like for example, if you see that Chi views Akira with amusement and not animosity. Anybody have any questions about that, or can we move on? Okay, I'm seeing we can move on. Again, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A tab, and we can get to them by the end. Uh, for for question 2, the correct answer was A. What did we all put in the poll? Ooh. Okay. So I'll explain why C is wrong first off. It's wrong because while Akira recognizes that his unscheduled visit is a nuisance, his larger concern is that she will reject him because his proposal is inappropriate. A is correct because Akira is very concerned that she will find his marriage proposal inappropriate because he did not follow a traditional protocol and use a go between. For for question 3, the correct answer was C. Oh, okay. I'll just explain why D is wrong. C is incorrect. I'm sorry, C is correct because Akira says to Chi or Chai, please. Oh my god. Please don't judge the candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. So it reveals his concern that she might say no to the proposal because he did not follow traditional practices. A, B, and D don't provide the best answer to the previous question. A is incorrect because it only describes his voice, and B is incorrect because it reflects Chi's perspective, not Akira's. And D is incorrect because it only demonstrates that Akira was speaking in an eager and forthright manner. I'm seeing a question here. Do we always see criticize? Yeah, criticize as negative. Yes, because it comes from the word critical. So you can often it's better interpretations of criticize is you're being critical and harsher on a person or a work. It's the difference between like criticize and judge are like kind of synonyms, and it's the difference between like offering like support and then criticism. What's a good antonym for criticism? To help you understand better, like praise, like a commendation, those are common antonyms. So yeah, you could always see criticize as negative. We can go on to the oh, do we have the oh, okay. So we have more questions here. 40 seconds is here. I'll put the poll up and we can start now. So in the passage, Akira addresses Chi with affection but not genuine love, objectivity but not complete impartiality, amusement but not mocking disparagement, respect but not utter deference. The poll is up and visible. Okay, I'm seeing some mixed results. We can move on. So, this timer is starting now. Yep. The main purpose of the first paragraph is to A, describe a culture, B, criticize a tradition, C, question a suggestion, or D, analyze a reaction. Poll is up. It is literature question 5. Oop, that's the timer. Okay, we can go on. For the fourth question, the correct answer is D. I'm getting some mixed results here, so we can just go over this top to bottom. A is incorrect because while Akira conveys respect to Chi, there is no evidence in the passage that he feels affection for her. And B is incorrect because objectivity and impartiality, it doesn't accurately describe how Akira dresses Chi. I can understand why somebody would put B, but it's more of a question. This is where we go back to one of the strategies of questioning the tone. Because sometimes you could be mistaken with synonyms and they might throw something at you that may seem like the correct answer because objectivity and impartiality might lead some people to think of respect and not deference. But unfortunately, that is incorrect. Choice C is incorrect because Akira conveys respect to Chi and takes the conversation seriously. And D is correct, which most of you got, so I'm proud. Is he treats her with respect, but not deference. again, I feel like some of these words may be difficult for people, so I would always recommend synonyms, finding synonyms, antonyms, seeing how the word sounds. What is it called? Finding root words, suffixes, because again, some people might not have gotten objectivity or impartiality, and some people might not know what the word deference means. But I digress. Answer D is correct because Akira treats Chi with respect, including bowing to her, calling her madame, treating her with a deferential pique. So it was stated in the passage this time, which the SAT will often do. And Akira does not offer Chi utter deference, though he asks to marry Naomi after he concedes that he's not following protocol and admits to being a nuisance, a disruption. For the, what is this, the fifth one? The correct answer is D. Oh, it was split, 50-50. Okay. Let me just reveal the results for everything now. Anyhow, the correct answer is D because the first paragraph is a reflection on how Akira approached Chi to ask for her daughter's hand in marriage. So the narrator is wondering whether Chi could have been more likely to say yes to the proposal if Akira had followed the tradition. There's a quote here. I'm not going to read it top to bottom, but the main purpose of the quote would be the first paragraph is to examine why Chi reacted a certain way to Akira's proposal. Choice A would be incorrect because the first paragraph describes only one aspect of Japanese culture, which is the marriage proposals, but not the culture as a whole. So if we have any questions, you can put the speak now or forever hold your peace, because I believe we're going into historical practice, and I believe Rashi is taking this one over. Going once?
Hi, everyone.
Twice? Okay, I'll hand it off to you.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there. But my name is Rashi, and I'll be going over the historical practice section. So just like before, make sure you're clicking the green button down there that says reading passages here, so that way you have access to the reading passages. The historical passage is on page 4 of the Google Docs, so just scroll on down and let's get started. So I'll give you guys 3 minutes to make sure you can go ahead and read the passage. Okay, so just like before, we're going to get into the actual questions that are part of the historical section. So we're going to do the first question, which is right up on the screen, and you guys have 40 seconds. Second question, go ahead and answer it. And just like Delilah said, the poll is up in the poll section on the right-hand side of the screen. And now it's time for the third question. And I highly recommend that even if you haven't, maybe you weren't able to choose between two answers, go ahead and choose one and put it in the poll, just so that we know where to spend more time with the question. The more answers we get, the more accurate we're able to help you guys. With that being said, 40 seconds is now on the clock for the third question. And that's 40 seconds. So just like before, we're going to go into the answers for each section. So this was historical question number 1. It was asking for the main purpose of the passage. And I see that the majority of us chose answer choice B, just the urgency of an issue, which is correct. So let's get a little bit more into this. So someone did choose answer choice C, but first we'll go over why B is correct. So in this passage, Wolf asks women a series of questions, and she wants women to consider joining the procession of educated men by becoming members of the workplace. Wolf stresses that this issue is urgent, as women have very little time in which to answer these questions. So again, the very little time stresses that urgency, and the issue is joining the workforce. So answer choice C is incorrect here because Wolf isn't highlighting the severity of social divisions, or even if she is, she's more explaining how these divisions can be reduced with women joining the workforce. So while C could be correct, B is just more correct. And I know it's a little bit difficult to tell the difference between some of these answers and like which one is more correct. But one of the best tips I can give for this section is to always like annotate your document and just like highlight whatever key details you see, because that helps you figure out what the main purpose of the passage is. In this case, like I know it's a Google Docs, but you could always just download it or make a copy and then leave comments for yourself or highlight the text as you go along while reading it. Okay, so historical question 2 asks for the central claim of the passage, and the correct answer choice here was A, educated women face a decision about how to engage with existing institutions. So I can see that the majority of us didn't get this correct, so we're going to spend a little bit more time on why it's A. So throughout the passage, Woolf is advocating for more women to engage with existing institutions by joining the workforce. And some key lines here are, we too can leave the house, can mount those steps, pass in and out of those doors, make money, administer justice, and so on. The word to over in that sentence implies that she wants women to join something that's already existing. It's not women are taking the first step, it's that it's women are joining men in doing this. And men is that existing institution. So Woolf is telling educated women that they are at a moment of transition where they must consider their future role in the workforce, which is why the correct answer choice is A, where women are facing a decision on how to engage with these existing institutions. So I see a lot of us chose B. B is incorrect because even though Woolf mentions women's traditional roles, like saying lines like, while they stirred the pot, while they rocked the cradle, she doesn't suggest that women will have to give up these traditional roles to gain positions of influence. Instead, it's finding a balance between having both roles. And so answer choice B just chooses a side, but make sure if you're ever choosing a side in like one of these types of questions, you can find textual evidence to support your idea. In this case, while yes, traditional roles are mentioned within the text, there's no evidence about women having to give up these roles in order to gain positions of influence. And I can see some people chose answer choice D. So D is incorrect because while Woolf suggests educated women can hold positions currently held by men, she doesn't suggest that women's entry into positions of power will change these positions. Instead, she's more talking about the power of women as a gender instead of like looking at the positions of how we're changing the power of women as a gender instead of changing the positions themselves. That's the main claim of the passage. So again, just like with B, like while you can find evidence that Woolf is suggesting educated women can hold positions currently held by men, you aren't able to find evidence for the second part of that sentence. So make sure you're looking for evidence supporting both sides of the argument. Okay, and then historical question 3. According to the passage, Woolf chooses the setting of the bridge because it, and the correct answer choice is B here, provides a good view of the procession of the sons of educated men. So B is correct because Woolf directly states, the bridge over the River Thames has an admirable vantage ground for us to make a survey. The phrase make a survey means to carefully examine an event or activity. And Woolf wants educated women to fix their eyes upon the procession of the sons of educated men walking to work. That's why Woolf chooses the bridge, because of that vantage ground, because that's where educated women can look, and this is a direct line, to the procession of the sons of educated men. So I can see a few people chose answer choice A, and A is incorrect because while Woolf states the bridge is a place to stand on by the hour dreaming, she's stating that she uses this bridge to consider the facts. The facts isn't for fanciful reflection. Instead, it's analyzing this procession and seeing how can we as women also join and make our mark. And a few people chose answer choice D. That's also incorrect because Woolf doesn't suggest that the bridge is a symbol of a male-dominated past. Instead, she's suggesting that it serves as a good place to watch men proceed to work. So again, the key things to look at for this question were the admirable vantage ground for us to make a survey that implies a good view. Even if you don't understand what make a survey means, admirable vantage ground is kind of like hunting grounds or like places where you observe. Second thing is fix their eyes upon the procession of the sons of educated men walking to work. All right, with that being said, we're now going to get into the second half of this practice. Another 40 seconds on the clock. Okay, go ahead and answer the question in the polls. Oh, skipped a few slides there. Let's see if we can go back. Okay, yep. And that is answer question 5.
Oh, Rashi, you're muted.
Thank you for reminding me. Go ahead and put your answers to question 5 into the poll. And while you're doing that, let's go over question 4. So question 4 says, Wolf characterizes the questions where we have to ask ourselves here and now, do we wish to join that procession or don't we? On what terms shall we join that procession? Above all, where is it leading us, the procession of educated men? As both. And so the answer here is C, momentous and pressing. So I can see for this poll, 100% of us chose answer choice C, which excellent job there. So we don't really have, I guess, the explanation for C. It got cut here. But the way Wolf speaks about these questions is that it's imminent. Like, these are urgent questions that we have to answer right away. Because she uses the phrases, we have to ask ourselves here and now. Here and now is where you get that momentous and pressing sense of urgency. And that's why the correct answer choice is C, which you guys got correct. Nicely done. And then question 5 asks you to provide the best evidence for the answer to the previous question. And again, 100% of you guys got this correct. And we have very little time in which to answer them. And so that definitely demonstrates the urgency of this moment, how pressing it is to answer these questions immediately, and how momentous it is that these questions need to be answered for the sake of women as a gender, for the sake of changing the workplace and having equality. And just a quick tip for these types of questions where it's like paired questions. You should always be able to match your answer choice from part 1 to part 2. There should always be a direct link. And so sometimes what I like to do is I like to go ahead and try and see if I can answer the question from part 1 using the text evidence from part 2, and then use that to choose the correct answer for part 1. It's a little bit confusing there, but having that textual evidence, like the SAT is literally telling you where to look to answer those questions. And so use the text evidence first, figure out which text evidence supports part 1, and then go ahead and answer part 1. And it just makes it easier. So make sure you're always answering these questions like grouped together. With that being said, we're now done with the literature and historical section, and we're also right on time. Wow, that's crazy. So we're going to get into the social sciences and scientific concepts sections now. All right, the social sciences section is all about analyzing culture. And so these are passages that are chosen about political or social movements related to economics, psychology, or sociology. The change between these sections versus literature and historical is that these passages can include infographics like charts and graphs, but there's also a possibility of having a paired passage set in this section, or 2 passages advocating for different sides of the same topic. And that's what scares a lot of people on the SAT, the paired passages section, but don't worry, we're going over plenty of tips like usual. And so some examples of these are, Can Economics Be Ethical by Prospect Publishing, The Lincoln-Douglas Debates, which were published in 1858, and The Great Reset by Richard Florida. So I know, 1858 for Lincoln-Douglas Debates, why is that in social science and not historical? Well, the Lincoln-Douglas debates, as the word debates tells you, were 2 debates or 2 people arguing over the same topic. You have the Lincoln side and the Douglas side. And so it's a paired passage set where you read Lincoln's side, you read Douglas's side, and then you combine them or compare the two. So some strategies for the social science section. As always, these do overlap a bit with the other passages, but that's kind of how a reading section works. The first one is to simplify the question. The SAT loves to throw very long, very technical oriented questions at you. But you should be able to understand exactly what the question is asking for you to do. Sometimes they'll throw in extra details within the question. Just look at what the question's asking. Simplify it to the best of your ability, and make sure you're able to put it in your own words. That way you can properly answer it. If you don't understand what the question is asking, then you're not going to understand how to answer it. Answer the question strategically. Some of these questions will be very long. Some of them will ask you to compare minute details from two different passages. And if you're in a rush and you're looking at that question, go ahead and skip it. Come back to it at the end if you have time. But the SAT grades, yes, on accuracy, but also the number of questions you answer. And so for those questions, it's okay to skip it and come back later on. Read actively. So especially in the case of having two passages, you want to make sure you're annotating the text so that later on you can come back to those texts and understand exactly what your thought process was when you were first attempting it or first reading it. What I personally love to do is if I have two texts in front of me, text 1 and text 2, I'm going to read all of text 1 first, and I'm going to annotate it. I'll write down, okay, here's the tone, here's the main idea, and if the author's overall tone is positive or negative. Then I'm going to go ahead and answer all the questions from passage 1. Then I'll do the same for passage 2. Read it, annotate it, each paragraph, write what the main idea is, write the main idea as a passage, write what the tone is, if it's positive or negative, and answer questions from passage 2. Only then do I like to do questions that relate to both passages, now that I've gotten a proper understanding of what each passage is about. Because I've read actively, because I have all my notes written down from each passage, I don't need to go back and reread passage 1 all of a sudden so that I understand. Instead, I can look at my notes and I can quickly answer questions regarding both passages. So reading actively is actually one of the biggest tips for saving time. Jumping to the left side, a great thing to do for social science sections is to analyze the graph first before you look at the questions. And that's because oftentimes the questions for graphs appear to be very easy. And so you'll go ahead and answer it, and you won't look at the axes where it's telling you, oh, this isn't in units of 1, it's in units of like a million. Or you won't look at the title, which is actually explaining something completely different. Or you're just skimming and you accidentally read the graph entirely wrong. That's why you should always analyze the graph first before you're attempting questions related to the graph. And lastly, practice. So there are two types of questions for the social science section. Just like literary, you have synthesis questions, which is comparing and contrasting information given within a passage or within a set of paired passages. And so the biggest tip here is to focus on making sure you understand the central points that each passage is making. If you aren't able to say it in your own words, then you may not have the depth of understanding to answer the question. So again, repeating what I said earlier, reading each passage, taking a few seconds to write down what the central point is or the key idea of each paragraph, but also making sure you're writing that in your own words so that you know you properly understand it. Well, what if you aren't able to say it in your own words? Then reread the passage but slower. It's very important that you understand what the meaning of the whole passage is, because if you find yourself rushing through reading it in order to save time, oftentimes you'll end up getting the questions wrong, and then there's no time saved there at all. Instead, it's better to do it slowly and get it accurate and then work up to building speed. And the second type of questions are the infographic section or questions, which is understanding and analyzing infographics like charts, graphs, and tables. So again, make sure you understand the graph first before attempting to answer questions. And look at every component: axes, title, legend, and labels. Now let's go over the science section, which is the fourth type of passage in the SAT. This is all about understanding the facts. So these passages will be on scientific topics. I know, no way. And they also include infographics like charts and graphs. Just like the social science section, there's a possibility of having a paired passage set in this section. And so an example of that could be maybe you have one passage advocating for the benefits of solar power, whereas the other passage is actually advocating for the benefits of hydropower, linked on the same topic, but they're presenting two different arguments. And so some examples are turtles use the Earth's magnetic field as a global GPS, or a different kind of smart. And I know sometimes the science passage can be the most boring one. Fully understand that. But if you read actively and are making sure you're annotating the text, it helps you keep you awake and it just makes good practice, honestly. So let's go into the science strategies. Just like before, analyze the graph first, look at the graph before you answer the questions. Second thing is to simplify the question. And for the science section, this is particularly important because you're going to have a lot of technical jargon that's just thrown your way, and you won't really understand it in the passage or in the questions. But sometimes it's unimportant. The main thing to do with the science section is to make sure you understand exactly what the question is asking you for, because oftentimes it'll be a 3-line question and the actual question is like 3 words long. The biggest tip I can give you for this section is to ignore whatever prior knowledge you have. Maybe you're an expert on solar power. Doesn't matter. If it's not in the text, you do not choose it on the actual exam itself. Everything you should choose on the science section should be based by some textual evidence or facts that you can see within the passage itself. So always ignore your prior knowledge and focus on the text. Again, read actively, especially for the science section. If you catch yourself yawning or you're falling asleep, force yourself to pay attention, force yourself to take notes, do something to keep you awake so that you can properly digest the information, but also assist yourself in answering the questions, especially when you have a paired passage set. And just like always, the more practice you do, the better you do on the actual exam, which is why you're all here, of course. Just like before, there are 2 types of questions to the science section. For synthesis questions, this is especially important because the science section can have a lot of small details thrown at your way or a lot of weird scientific concepts. So it's very important you understand what the central point is of the passage, but also of each paragraph. That way, if you don't understand something later on, you have some evidence to fall back upon. And infographics as usual, understand them before you answer the questions. And just to give a little bit more information about infographics, so here are some strategies that I like to use. First one being analyze the graph first. No way, you've heard me say it multiple times now. Second one is to make sure you understand exactly what the question is asking you to do. Sometimes it's very easy to skim the question, be like, oh, I've got this, and then miss out on like a key detail. Whether it's just like the question asking you for the year 2010 specifically, or the question is asking you to look at just one specific city. Underline that information because when you're in a rush, it's very easy to skip over those key details. Examine all the labels, units, titles, axes, whatever information the graph is giving to you, you better hope that you read it because it just makes it much easier to answer the questions later on. If you have a great understanding of what the graph is asking you to do, it'll take you like 2 seconds to answer the questions. Oftentimes, the infographics questions are very easy. The key thing is just to make sure you understand what they're asking you to do. And then this is going to sound a little weird, but sometimes I like to answer the question before I look at the answer choices. And so I'll read the question, I'll look at the graph, and I'll come up with, okay, I think it looks like in 2010 there are 1 million people, and in 2012 there are 8 million people, so it's showing population decrease over time. And then I'll look at the answer choices and see which one corresponds with my answer. And that way I'm going into the answer choices with a clear vision of what the answer should look like. I'm not being influenced by what the answer choices are saying, right? Or I'm not in that position where I'm skimming the answer choices trying to find a correct one that matches the graph. Instead, I already know what the graph is telling me. I'm looking at an answer choice that matches what answer choice I believe it should be. And then that also helps if your answer choice isn't on isn't on the board, isn't on the paper, then you know it's incorrect. And of course, last strategy is to practice. So speaking of practice, let's get into that. We're going to start off with the social science practice. As always, the reading passages is linked down below, and there are 2 minutes on the clock. That's 2 minutes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and answer the first question. And just like always, it's up on the right. Go ahead and answer the poll. Second question is on the screen. Okay, for these, we're going to go ahead and get into the explanations. So I am currently scrolling. Okay, social science question 1. Not many of you guys have answered this question, so I urge you to go ahead and answer it and pretend you didn't see the answer up there, but we'll go ahead and discuss it anyways. The passage most strongly suggests that researchers at the Martin Prosperity Institute share which assumption? And the correct answer choice here is B. Employees whose commutes are shortened will use the time saved to do additional productive work for their employers. So let's look at why it is B. So the passage provides a lot of details that support choice B. The first one is that the author is discussing how much work time is lost and the overall cost of the US economy because of commuting. And so this is also directly stated in lines 39 to 41, which states that as time is cut from commuting, more time is added to the economy. Now let's take it, like if we take this opposite way, if the author believes that if people didn't commute, those drawbacks would disappear. So he's like, if time goes down, money increases. So if time goes up, money decreases. Looking at productivity, this means that the author supports the idea that if commuting times would decrease, productivity would increase, which is why the correct answer choice is B. Now, some people did say answer choice C. So C is incorrect because the passage aims to discuss the drawbacks of commuting, but there's no mention of activities that commuters should be doing while commuting, or evidence of how commuters can take advantage of their commuting time to increase the benefits of commuting. Instead, he's just discussing why commuting is negative. And then let's go into the second question. Second question, we had an equal split between A and B. So the correct answer choice here is A. Cities need to invest heavily into public transportation and walkable city planning. And let's look at why. Sorry, I'm gonna drink some water a bit. My throat's gotten a little dry. The author states, commuting by car is among the least efficient of all of our activities. And this is in the fifth line of the text. So we already know that they're advocating against car usage. So they're going to support other alternatives besides car usage to combat the hours spent stuck in traffic. An example solution of this is public transportation or walkable city planning, which is in line for the author to support based on the passage. So here you need to understand not just what the author's main central point is, but also apply that to the answer choices given here. For the people that said B, B is incorrect because when we look at paragraph 4, it discusses how new roads lead more people to drive and actually ends up creating more traffic over the long run. And this is, fun fact, an actual scientific study that did demonstrate that new roads encourage more people to drive and they actually don't decrease traffic. That's why the correct answer choice here is A, because the author would support alternatives to cars, and two great alternatives are public transportation and walkable city planning. All right, question 3, poll is up. Okay, and now moving on to question 4. Both polls are up on the right, so make sure you've gone ahead and answered them. Okay, let's take a look. So question 3 asked, as used in line 52, intense most nearly means what? And I know it's a little bit difficult to find a line 52 on a Google Doc, but shout out to you guys because you got it 100% correct anyways. The correct answer here is B, concentrated. So just quickly looking at the text or the explanation here, In this example, the sentence discusses how the future will have smaller, more intense clusters of jobs. So the word concentrated matches intense the best in this context. And the easiest way to answer these questions is literally just sometimes taking the answer choice and putting it in the sentence and then reading it out loud to see if it makes sense. Nicely done. And then question 4, which claim about traffic congestion is supported by the graph? And I'm really hoping all of you guys analyze the graph before answering the question, but majority of you guys got this correct. It is C, commuters in Washington, D.C. face greater delays annually due to traffic congestion than do commuters in New York City. But we had a bit of a split, so let's look at the answers in a little bit more detail. So the graph shows the yearly hours of delay per automobile customer. And on the y-axis, we have the number of hours spent, while on the x-axis, we have the city names and average time spent. And if we look at the graph in a little bit more careful study, it's organized with the worst cities for traffic on the left. So Washington, D.C., which is on the very left, has the worst traffic time at 67 hours. And New York City is on its right, which at 60 hours of traffic. So that's less than D.C., which means that commuters in D.C. face greater delays than do commuters in New York City. And if you're here from D.C., I am so sorry. So some people did say choice D is correct, but choice D isn't, unfortunately, because when we look at the graph, commuters in Detroit spend 40 hours stuck in traffic, which is less than the other 3 options, Houston, Atlanta, and Chicago, which are all 50 hours. With that being said, that is the end of our social sciences section. So we're now going to get into everyone's favorite section, the science period. Green buttons at the bottom, go ahead and scroll to the science part, and 2.5 minutes are on the clock. Oh, sorry, for this section we'll actually do 3 minutes of paired classes. All right, let's get into answering the science questions. First question is on the clock. Go ahead and answer the poll. Second question's on the screen. Again, go ahead and answer the poll. And third question. So let's go ahead and answer them, or look at the answers. First question, within passage 1, the main purpose of the first 2 paragraphs, or lines 1 through 10, is to, and the correct answer choice here is B, offer interpretive context in order to frame the discussion of an experiment and its results. And this is a very difficult passage set, full honesty, so don't feel discouraged if you find yourself getting a few more of these incorrect than you did in the last few passage sets. For this one, we have an equal split between B and C, so let's look at the answer choices in a bit more detail. So answer choice B, which is asking for or providing context. So let's look at this question first. There's a few things to note. First of all, it's only looking at passage 1, so don't even bother looking at passage 2 for this. Second thing is it's literally telling you to look at the first 2 paragraphs. So if you annotated the passage while you read it the first time, you could very easily look at your annotations and answer this. But if you didn't, no worries. We're going to go over it now. In the first passage, a scientist discusses how an observation of a crow using an insightful solution led to him conducting an experiment that demonstrated the intelligence of crows. So that's kind of an overview of that first passage itself. But let's look at only the first 2 paragraphs. So paragraph 1, it discusses what Morgan's canon is. Paragraph 2 discusses people's expectations regarding animal intelligence. And so that's our framework here. These 2 paragraphs combined frame how the experiment is discussed. So when we have Morgan's canon, now it's kind of forcing us to look at the scientist's willingness to believe that the crows are as smart as humans, especially when Gray tries to mimic the bird and is unsuccessful. It's kind of influencing us to look at, oh, they're very likely to think that crows and humans are the same level of intelligence, which is something that you wouldn't have otherwise noted had paragraph 1 not discussed Morgan's canon. So choice C, which is the other answer choice people put, is incorrect because while it matches the first paragraph on the scientific principle part, it doesn't match the second paragraph, which is describing people's expectations regarding animal intelligence. Second question, according to the experiment described in passage 2, whether the author's ravens continue to show interest in a formerly new object was dictated primarily by whether that object was blank. In this case, it's answer choice A, edible. So the majority of us got this correct. Excellent. So a direct line from the text here is, in subsequent trials, when the previously novel items were edible, they became preferred, and the inedible objects became background items, just like the leaves, grass, and pebbles, even if they were highly conspicuous. Which means that the ravens preferred these edible objects over anything else, no matter how conspicuous or important these disregarded objects were. And edible means, of course, you can eat them. Some people did choose answer choice C, but this is incorrect because of that line. No matter if the objects were plentiful, conspicuous, or natural, if they were inedible, they were disregarded for those edible objects because that is what the ravens preferred. And now we have question 3. The crows in passage 1 and the ravens in passage 2 shared which trait? And so this is a classic paired passage question. You're looking at the main topics of both passages and comparing them. So the correct answer choice here was A, they modified their behavior in response to changes in their environment. And it seems like a few of us, or the majority of us, got this correct and said answer choice A. So let's look at it in a little bit more detail. So in passage 1, the researchers are hiding meat within these logs, and then the birds respond by continually or reliably checking these logs. They wouldn't have checked these logs had the researchers not hid the meat inside them. So it's like a classic experiment. So environment change is the researchers hiding meat, behavior modification, the birds checking the logs. And then in passage 2, about the ravens, the author is dropping new objects during their walks. So the environment change, I mean, these new objects weren't previously there. And then the behavior modification is the ravens picking those objects out of the environment more often than they would for background objects because they're new. And they're like, wow, ooh, shiny. So that is the relation between both of the crows and the ravens. They're both modifying their behavior in responses to changes in their environment. And looking at the poll, some people did say that the correct answer is C. So C is incorrect because while tool making was important in passage 2, in passage 1, there's no evidence in passage 2 that the ravens built tools. Instead, they're just picking out the food from their environment and consuming them. And then before we get on to the last half of the science section, Zanila is going to take over from here. Unfortunately, I have to quickly leave, but I have full confidence that you guys are going to do excellent from what I've seen today. And I will see you all on tomorrow's Cram session instead. Bye, everyone.
Okay, so I'll pick up with the science passages from here. I'm setting a 40-second timer, and we could start. Okay, next question. Remember that the poll is up and visible, so let's get to it. All right. So for question, I believe that was question 4. The correct answer was B, and I see that everyone got that correct. So props to you guys. Very proud. So B obviously is correct. We don't need to dwell more on this. If you'd like to, remember that the slideshow will be linked below by the end of the stream. And so I'm just going to go into why it's correct. Because in the first passage, the researchers hid behind a blind to avoid being seen. And then the second passage describes the author leading ravens on walks where he would touch objects and see if ravens would also touch those objects. Because it's made clear that he intentionally made the birds aware of his presence, he wouldn't have otherwise been able to conduct the experiment. And the correct answer for number 5 is D. Oh, oops. So I see that most people picked A. The correct answer was choice B. Choice A was incorrect because the author attributes the raven's actions to curiosity, not environmental factors, without offering alternate solutions. And choice B is correct because in passage 2, it concludes that the raven's curiosity ensures exposure to all or almost all items in the environment. And the Morgan's canon is that, that the suggestions of human-like mental processes behind an animal's behavior should be rejected if a simpler explanation would do. Because curiosity is a human trait, so the author of passage 2 is relating a human trait, curiosity, to their behavior, expressing interest in every new object without offering alternative solutions. Any questions on that? Going once, going twice, and remember, by the end, we'll have a Q&A, so we can have all your questions there. And so now we're going to go through our big takeaways, right? This is things that if you forget everything, remember these. First off, there are 3 question types: synthesis, global perspective, and command of evidence. And in each one, they're asking you to think critically and make connections about the make connections and also ideas. They're asking you the main idea, the tone, supporting evidence, etc., etc. And remember that passages span across different writing styles and topics, so it's best to focus in on certain themes or concepts because otherwise, it could confuse you very quickly. And remember, summarize the central points in your own words, either when you read a paragraph. When you read a paragraph first, paraphrase or summarize what you just read. And if it lacks complexity, then you might have to reread that paragraph to see if you fully understood it. And make sure to practice. Practice, practice, practice. That's always our number 1 tip because practice makes perfect, not to be lame or anything. And focus on the structure, whether or not it's chronological or if it's told, and non-chronologically, how the author structures events. It's always going to play a crucial part in the main idea and tone. So there are 2 question types big takeaways for historical concepts. There are 2 question types: connection and cause and effect. The first one asks you to make connections between certain events, people, concepts, ideas, etc. And the second one asks you to find a connection, like a cause-effect relationship between ideas. So an easy way to do this is look for transition words like also, therefore, thus, maybe secondly, anything that implies a connection or relationship. And look for keywords within passages. Because it helps you understand the main idea, the concept. Also, it really helps understanding like if there's a word being repeated 10 times out of 10, it is what the author really, really wanted to hammer down. And focus on matching tone from the passage to the answer. You wouldn't have like a happy, upbeat, jovial passage with an explanation that's kind of sad or depressing. And passages would clearly define the topic, but also might contain some older language. If you are not familiar with older language, I recommend using context clues. Or if you have time you're studying beforehand, I recommend reading historical passages, speeches, things of that nature that'll help you get acquainted with this older like more antiquated language. And again, practice. For the social sciences, our big takeaways are that there are two question types: synthesis and infographics. Synthesis will involve excuse me, bad day. Well, you would find crossovers between social science topics and scientific concepts. So when you're when you're trying to synthesize them, what you're trying to do is make connections, uh, and look for textual evidence, thoroughly reading the question, and asking for the main idea, a specific detail, or an inference. And also for things like infographics and graphs. They will ask you, you'll encounter data in the form of like charts, graphs, tables, scientific findings, and you have to interpret and analyze this data. So I recommend looking at the header, the headers, the labels, what the numbers say, what connection it's drawing. And I would always go and analyze the graphs first because that can color your understanding of the passage. And for social sciences, focus on central points of each passage. Don't get bogged down by the little details because oftentimes they'll try to throw you a curveball by saying something that's tangentially related, but not actually the point they're going for. And I'm kind of skipping around here, but remember that the passages will all be related to psychology, economics, or sociology. So you'll often see debates, social science passages that examine like a sociological phenomenon. Like, let's say, example of a sociological phenomenon would be why there's more Democrats in northern states than southern states. Sociology. And psychology, meaning the way that people, not the study of humanity, more like the study of how your brain works, psychology. And I feel like a broken record here, but practice. Ooh. And for the science passages, they're also the same thing for synthesis and infographics. I'm just going to go over the points that I didn't mention for social sciences, like focus on what scientific topics with graphs and graphics as supplements. And it's always great to forget what you know. Throw all background information you have on a topic out of the window. If it does not explicitly say it in the passage, it doesn't exist. And wow, we're an hour 43 minutes in. So leave your questions in the chat. I'll be here to answer all of them. Right now, I'm just going to, as questions might start rolling in, I'm just going to give you tips for the, general tips for the SAT. Ooh, excuse me, let me take a breather. I got time. So I would always recommend starting early and studying before your test date, like at least a few months. And use the official SAT study guide and practice tests from College Board, and familiarize yourself with the types of questions and the style of questions. And for vocab, like I know that the SAT has shifted away from like arcane vocabulary things that are like irrelevant, but it still tests on words and context. So when you come across unfamiliar words, make a flashcards or list them and review them regularly before the test. And for reading strategies, I recommend skimming questions first so you know what to look for, and annotating passages as you read for key ideas and evidence. And if you don't know the right answer, there's no penalty for wrong answers. So just don't leave a question blank. If you're unsure, make an educated guess. And always, I recommend Eating a balanced breakfast before the morning of, sleeping well before the test, bringing snacks and water because this test runs long, you will be hungry. And don't be dumb like me. Bring your admission ticket, your photo ID, calculator, pencils, erasers, all that stuff before the test day. And make sure you stay calm because anxiety will negatively affect how you perform. So relax and stay positive. So I'm just gonna go make a SAT practice quiz, like reading quiz real quick as we have time. Let me stop screen sharing for a moment so I can quickly make a quiz. And remember, I'm always answering questions, so if you have any, put them in Q&A. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much. I was struggling. So to join the quiz, I'm putting the link in the chat. And also, I'll be putting it in the green button down below in just a moment. Make sure you click the answers, read the passage, and make sure you answer below, and we can go over what you got wrong, what you missed, etc. Okay, so the answer was D. We could go on to the next question. I'm glad 75% of you got it. That's like 3 out of 4. Yeah, that's like 3 out of 4. Great job. Is there any way I can turn these? Okay, so the correct answer is A. There's only like a few people in the quiz, so I'll just explain. Excuse me. horrible. Like, okay, it's been rainy all day. It does not go hand in hand with exhaustion. The answer was A, nothing, because they do not discuss the economic impacts of obesity. C is incorrect because, again, they don't discuss economic impacts of obesity, which is why A is correct. And all the others would be incorrect. Next question, right? Yeah. And as you're doing this, I just want to take time to say, make sure you do our survey. It helps us figure out what you liked about it, what you didn't like, how we can improve, what you'd like to see more of. So please, when you have time, take the survey. I'll get to the Ilana. Is that how you spell it? Is that how you pronounce your name? And Iani. I'll get to your questions soon. I'll explain why that one was what do you call it? I'll explain why A was correct in just a moment. We could go on to the next question in the meantime. Okay, so the correct answer was B, and most of you got it correct. So, yippee! So the correct answer was passage one. Passage one emphasizes the need for action, while passage two critiques the portrayal of the issue. Oh, okay. Jessica, I wanted to ask if you could help me with answering one of the other questions because I'm a little confused. Maybe I got something wrong there. But in the meantime, we are 2 minutes it's 2 hours and 1 minute. thank you all for coming. We love the energy and the questions you brought today. Uh, I enjoy doing these, so I hope to see you in a writing and language cram, or maybe and also in our cram finale. Make sure again, I want to emphasize to do the survey, and yeah, that will be all. See you guys soon, hopefully, and we can end the broadcast.